mic check. Yeah. Hello and good morning and a warm welcome here at the AI House at Davos. As you could see, we had our first task to do and looking after the right name for the right seat, but we finally managed it. So that's a very good starting point. My name is Holger Kneisel. I work for KPMG. In Germany, I'm the responsible board member for the advisory business. But today I have the great pleasure to moderate a panel discussion about a very relevant topic. It's enhancing healthcare efficiency through digitalization and AI. And I'm really excited to see so many people here attending to this panel. And I think it's because of both the discussion topic, of course, but of course it's also because of these high-profile panelists we actually managed to have here. So let me briefly introduce them, and also everything is constant except for the change. We've planned, first of all, with Nicole Büttner from Merantix Momentum this morning, but as quite a, let's say, not unusual pattern here in Davos, you suddenly get sick in the morning. So that's what actually happened to Nicole, and we wish her all the best. Get well soon. But thanks God, Bertram Weis, Vice President from Merantix Momentum, jumped in this morning. And I'm very grateful for that, because Bertram, you have a quite long career in the healthcare industry. For example, you have worked for ages for Sharing, and half of your professional life most probably for Bayer. Yes. But you're now Vice President, as I mentioned, in Merantix Momentum, and that gives us pretty much the chance to get your, let's say, entrepreneurial startup perspective into our today's discussion. So warm welcome, Bertram, and thanks that you made it.
Thank you.
Next, we have Dr. Peter Lee, sitting over there, who is President of Microsoft Research. Peter has an extensive experience in managing fundamental research to commercial impact in areas such as AI, cloud computing, or biotechnology. And among other roles, you are, for example, a member of the National Academy of Medicine and a member of the boards of directors at Paul Allen Institute of Artificial Intelligence. So, Peter, great to have you here and to get your, let's say, researcher's perspective into our discussions today. And our third panelist is Michael Sen, CEO and Chairman of the Management Board of Fresenius Group. Michael is a top management voice in the German and international corporate scene, as he has worked for ages for well-known DAX 40 companies like Siemens or E.ON. And Michael, you not just worked for them, managed them, but you also transformed them. And that's what Michael is currently doing with Fresenius. He is pretty much in the process of transforming Fresenius. And for those of you who may not all know Fresenius, it's a German headquartered company of some 20 billion market cap, I guess, Michael. And but it has a pretty unique business model, because it's a combination of pharma, hospitals, and nutrition just under one corporate roof. So no one could explain better than Michael the challenges of implementing AI technologies in healthcare from a corporate perspective. Great to have you here, Michael. So I'm super excited to have these outstanding experts here to discuss our topic. And I think just as a short introduction, with an increase in both age and diseases on the one hand, and a decrease in qualified healthcare professionals, the cost of healthcare, generally spoken, for a society is becoming a huge problem. Some people would even say it's an unmanageable problem. So efficiency is desperately needed, and whether or not AI could help or even supercharge efficiency without dehumanizing patient care, that's what I would like to understand today from our panelists. And of course, at the end of the session, I'll make sure that you get enough time just to throw questions and to interact with our panelists here. But let's now kick it off. And I would start with a rather general question of the role of AI. And so let's do the following question. How do you see the role of digitalization and AI in improving efficiency in healthcare? Michael, perhaps that's something you would like to start with, and then we see later on.
Yeah, thanks. And thanks for having me. Look, AI is on everybody's mind here at Davos, but also before I came to Davos, I was a week in San Francisco at a big healthcare conference, and I spent 1.5 days shared with Peter in the Valley, visiting also a few guys who know something or know at least more about AI than I do in Stanford. So it is exciting. Probably the other topic here in Davos, we are having a sugar high on geopolitics, but the other topic is clearly technology and AI. And by the way, I do believe when you see the latest announcements in the US that these topics are even interconnected. But now coming to the topic, AI is happening. AI is a game changer. It will change the way we invent, we create, we govern, we learn, and ultimately it will also change the way how we deliver care. And for us as a company, we are very mission driven, how we save people's life, how we save patients or improve their lives. So it is a driving force and it will change a lot. And we are, I believe, at a what we call Promethean moment. A Promethean moment means there's something which is just happening and is being created. I still believe that none of us know how exactly it will pan out. How does the change really look like, as it is not pretty new as a technology? You know, there was the winter days or dark days of AI, but now through the high compute, obviously, it's getting more and more traction. But I would make the statement that probably short term, we are underestimating the impacts. When we think long term, at least from my perspective, we're overestimating that, you know, AI is going to take over everything and we won't play a role anymore. But short term, and Peter can talk about that much more technologically, there's rapid change happening. You know, last year when I was in San Francisco, I came out of the airport, a lot of billboards, AI. This year, I don't see that many AI billboards anymore. I see more the applications. People talk more about agents, so how to use them, or even the next generation technology. So when it comes to healthcare, and Holger, you almost gave our strategy, our equity story, if you so wish, preparing Fresenius for the future. We want to be a leading healthcare company. Healthcare means we have our own network. We have the biggest hospital chain in Europe with 26 million patients in Spain and in Germany, and we are a global provider of highly specialized medicine, medical technology, infusion systems, and clinical nutrition. And one topic when we talk about delivering care, and we all want to deliver more quality care for patients, but also bending down the cost curve, AI will supercharge delivering better quality care. And it goes through the whole value chain when it comes to drug discovery. You know, you read from, you know, somebody received the Nobel Prize the other day on protein folding. So it can dramatically shorten the time as to time to market and the whole work on drug discovery and data cracking and patterns and so on and so forth. But also all the way through to delivering care, pattern recognitions. We use AI today in imaging already when you do MRIs and CT, or when you do colonoscopy or an endoscopy. There is embedded in AI in there which helps the doctor make a better decision. So the big dream everybody had in healthcare, that we are getting a more personalized and a more precise healthcare, is at our fingertips, if you so wish. AI drives to better clinical outcome. AI also is being used, like in other industries, to drive productivity and efficiency. There's a lot of administrative burden in a hospital setting, which we all don't want to have, because it keeps the nurses and the doctor away from the patient. Average-wise, 3 to 4 hours a doctor has to spend on the discharge letter, but we want them to spend the time with the patient. Also, workforce. The limitation of workforce is a big topic in the US, in Germany. It's actually the bottleneck. So can digitization, AI help there? A lot of productivity is in there. We change with the help of AI, the entire processes within the emergency room. A lot of processes are in the emergency room. You see it sometimes on television. It's very, very fast. So a lot of things are happening there, and there we used AI to use it as a turbo to change and compress the process. But better clinical decision making, because we have one thing, which that's why I think we will cooperate in an ecosystem with smaller companies, but also big techs, and us as the application user. We have 26 million patients, and just imagine the data lake we have. And you need 2 to 3 things. You need obviously the compute, and by the way, you need the money. You need people. This is there are not that many people who know anything about AI, and you need the data. We are sitting on the data, and on top of the data as such is worth nothing. On top of the data, it is about the applications and the services you do. So supercharging quality care. The second thing is it will drive or will be a powerful equalizer in health equity. Health equity is very close to our heart. Health equity is that around the globe, but not only talking about developing countries, but also even in countries like Germany or the US, there are many people who do not have access to healthcare. You said it, the amount of costs in terms of GDP, the latest numbers in the US were 17.5% with a growth rate of 7.5%. This is unbearable. So we have an obligation to really be responsible with the resources we put in delivering care. And AI can help to efficiently use the resources and thereby increase access and also affordability. When I talked about how do medications come to drugs, if this whole process is compressed and is maybe less cost extensive, then it helps at the end of the day that patients get access to high quality medicine. We have an example in our clinics in Spain, Quirón Salud, which I believe is the most innovative clinic chain or system in Europe. I told you the emergency room, we took a turbo. At oncology care there for specific oncology patterns, we changed the whole process. We changed the whole model with the help of data and AI. And the outcome was we reduced waiting times. We reduced the times of follow-up care. We reduced side effects, and the clinical outcome was improved. And that means, at the end of the day, more patients can go through this process, and this is one example of access. But at the core of our strategy, no matter how super technologically wise AI is human to human. Human to human, because at the end of the day, a patient comes to us in our hospital chain when he or she is most vulnerable, when he or she is sick. And that's why I believe in the application of AI, trust plays a huge role. And trust is at the core of our business model when delivering care to patients. So this in a nutshell.
Yeah. There are already so many things we could discuss a little bit further. But Peter, I would like to get a bit more an understanding from you guys from the research side, Microsoft Research, talking about efficiency in healthcare. How much does that really, makes you busy in terms of getting those new things in healthcare, always with, let's say, the challenge, it must improve efficiency?
Yeah. It's such an important question. And let me say at the outset that efficiency, when it comes to something like healthcare, which is as close to a human right as possible, is just a conundrum. And just as a society, most societies really haven't been able to reconcile the needs for revenue and efficiency, business return on investment, with something that is just such a basic human right. And in that context, it's important to understand that technology is just an enabler, it's just a tool. Now, having said that, as a tool, it's incredibly powerful. What we're seeing today, for example, is AI that's able to reduce the administrative burdens that doctors and nurses, hospital administrators suffer. One of the products, I'm not trying to sell Microsoft products here, but one of our products is something called DAX Copilot, which is a GPT-4 based system that listens to a doctor-patient conversation and then offers a draft clinical note to be put in the electronic health record system. For nurses, is able to summarize what the previous nurse had done at nurse shift change. Just a horribly burdensome kind of administrative task. And AI is just reducing those dramatically. In a recent controlled clinical study on the DAX Copilot and ambient clinical note-taking powered by generative AI, it was shown that it reduces the amount of time that doctors spend writing documentation by 30 to 60 minutes per day in most medical specialties. How to convert that into efficiency is almost a policy and management question, but the tool and the possibility is there. At the next level, just related to something Michael said, is what I would call the power of AI to connect the bedside to the bench, to take all of the kind of data that Michael's organization and many other great healthcare organizations around the world end up collecting and looking at that population scale data in order to extract new advances in medical knowledge. Advances in medical knowledge that aid human health, lead to new, more accurate, personalized diagnoses and treatments. There have been many problems that have prevented that from becoming practical in the past. One very basic problem, just to give a sense of it, is the fact that clinical data is oftentimes highly unstructured, not in any kind of normalized form. And what we're learning with the advanced GPT models, as well as all GPT-4 class models that are emerging, is that they are remarkably effective at looking at large amounts of unstructured data and reformatting it into a structured form suitable for downstream analysis. The effort that we've been most engaged with is with the electronic health record company Epic. And they have an extremely large anonymized clinical database called Cosmos, over 11.5 billion clinical records in that database, and it's a mess. But GPT-4 is able to really kind of just derive good structure. Just one last thing to say, though, about this. When we talk about efficiency, it is connected to this question, if you are a doctor, will AI replace me? Or if you're a patient, will my doctor be AI? And it's a very important question because when we talk about efficiency, sometimes it's a euphemism for a future where we don't have to pay human doctors. In the history of modern medicine, there have only been 2 times that human beings have been eliminated from a medical specialty because of technology. One is that the technology of brain scans, which has led to the new medical specialty of neurology, completely eliminated the medical specialty of phrenology. And the second is that numerous technologies for blood-based diagnostics and infectious disease monitoring have replaced the use of barbers to do bloodletting as a treatment for the flu and other maladies. I think it's good that we don't have human beings doing those things anymore. In fact, I think it's good that we don't have phrenologists and the bloodletters anymore. But having said that, literally every modern medical specialty has been deeply affected by technology. And my favorite example is in obstetrics and gynecology. Up until the mid-1960s, if an obstetrician wanted to examine a pregnant woman and her unborn fetus, he or she would use the technique of manual palpation. And in fact, in the United States, for medical school to be accredited, they still have to teach manual palpation to doctors. Around 1955, technologists proposed the use of ultrasound. But there was tremendous pushback. There were reasonable questions about the safety. Would this harm the unborn child? Would it harm the reproductive capacity of the woman? Doctors didn't know how to read these ultrasound images. And it really took a full decade before ultrasound became the standard of care. And the important thing to understand about this is that over and over again, the pattern is that expectations from patients flip. And if you are a woman and you're pregnant and you go to see an obstetrician today, and that obstetrician says, I don't believe in this fancy technology of ultrasound, I'm going to put my hands on you, that would probably be a reportable event. And so the expectation...
Just leave it then.
Yeah. And you can apply this pattern literally to every single medical specialty in modern medicine. And so as I look ahead, thinking about how technology is going to affect the practice of medicine, I don't see it replacing human beings, but I do see that, say, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, I don't know when, you will be alarmed if you go to see a doctor and that doctor tried to diagnose and treat you without the aid of AI.
Thank you. I mean, we've already heard from Michael how important it is for huge corporations to collaborate with big techs, as you just mentioned. And I think we all learned how that could work. You just expressed it. But Bertram, where is the role of a startup in this kind of collaboration? Where can they really collaborate with big corporations in order to create value there?
Right. Yeah, I think, I mean, first of all, it's a technology. And what people really, really care about is outcomes. You just mentioned that, right? You want to see something is getting better, something is done in a better fashion, in a better way. Maybe palpitation and ultrasound, everybody can relate to this, why this is better, right? You can see more. And for instance, there are so many ideas how you could use AI in this very broad field of healthcare, which is going from hospitals to insurance companies, of course, as well, right? As pharma companies. There are so many use cases that we can do and improve with AI that, I mean, there's nobody who can do it alone. Nor the hospital, they have to care for the patient. They shouldn't do innovation per se, right? If you come to see the doctor and they say, oh, I have no time, I have to look after the new system we have here, right? You would not be very fancy about this. So we really need to collaborate between the many players we have, between big research institutions, small startups who can innovate very fast. The problem always is how we collaborate at the end of the day to really implement it in the daily workflows of a big hospital, right? And this is, I think, where the role of startups really is in iteratively, very quickly innovate with ideas and then try to get this implemented. And the problem is here that, of course, the doctor wants to see a ready-to-go product, an off-the-shelf product that simply works and supports him. This is not how innovation, however, works. You need to start with an idea, you need to evolve it, test it in real life, learn from it, so you go into these cycles, right? And that's nothing a medical doctor wants to do during his daily work time. Yeah? So we need to create these spaces where we can collaborate between startups, providers of tech, yeah, but also those who actually deliver the outcomes. And I think this is really critical because in the past we didn't need it, or we did not need this deep level of collaboration as we may need it for implementing AI quickly. And that's, I also think, why we are so slow. I mean, if you go to see the doctor, I mean, really, out of heart, how many of us have the experience of AI when you see a doctor? You hardly have it, yeah? And you are also right, I think there is already AI being, I mean, if you use ultrasound or if an MRT image is already being scanned in the background by an AI, because the doctor may look for maybe your back pain, but actually he should also watch out if there's a tumor in your kidney if you have the image already on your screen, right? But maybe they don't do that carefully enough, so an AI in the background who would check that would give you a better feeling, and also the doctor would know if there's something, you get an alert, right? And these things needs to be implemented. And startups can help enormously, but a startup is nothing you would see in a hospital daily routine working there, right? And that is, I think, where we need to create spaces to make this take place.
So we implicitly touched already a little bit on challenges. And I have actually 2 questions on challenges. First question is, everybody has on the top of his head when it comes to AI about challenges, data privacy, regulatory requirements, etc. So first question is, what do you think about it? Are these the real challenges? And yeah, if not, then the second question comes in, what are any other challenges you do see in overcoming this and to bring in more efficiency, etc., into healthcare? Perhaps, Bertram, we again start with you, and then we move on.
Yeah, to me, regulation is a constraint. And that means to me, it's something I have to consider. I have to make sure it's being considered, but it's nothing that should drive me. In terms of, first of all, what I need to or want to see is that an idea evolves and gets into implementation and provides a better outcome. Of course, then we need to evaluate if this is really providing a better outcome and what is needed to get there, right? In terms of, but regulation should not hinder us from implementing. And I mean, we also heard here on other days on this panel that just start doing it. Yeah, that is the important thing about implementing innovation from my point of view. And then we need to see and consider what regulation tells us and how we do it correctly, right? And regulation also needs to change as technology introduces new paradigms. And AI will require regulations to change, definitely.
Peter, you come from a country where regulation is most probably a little bit different to continental Europe, and perhaps it even changes a little bit in the future. We'll see. And I know you have a special view on regulation, so perhaps you could just give us your thoughts about that. Is regulation really a challenge or a constraint? How do you look at it?
Well, I think it's crazy to think that any technology that is used in the practice or delivery of healthcare would not be regulated. And AI is no exception. Sometimes when people hear someone like me from Microsoft saying that, there can be suspicions of regulatory capture and so on. And I won't deny that regulatory capture is a real thing and it could benefit a company like Microsoft. But just putting that aside, and just think about what is used and the history that societies around the world have gone through. In the US, the history around snake oil and so on. The need for regulation, I think, is just really obvious. Now, I think, in the broader context of challenges, I don't see regulation or the lack of it being the fundamental barrier to the diffusion of innovation in healthcare. Instead, I see a lack of, for lack of a better term, architectural concept. And let me try to explain what I mean. Close your eyes and transport yourself to an alternate universe where the domiciles where people live have no concept of architecture. So what do I mean by that? When you build a house, you need a foundation, you need framing, you need electrical, you need plumbing, you need roofing,
windows,
doors and windows, and so on. And each one of these is an architectural concept. And so when an architect designs a house, they design each of these things. In fact, the whole industry is organized around those architectural concepts. There's a sub-industry of roofers. There's a sub-industry of foundations, and so on. And these are very important things because now, if you are an innovator that has a better idea, say, for heating a house, there is a way with a single market motion to sell to the entire home building industry. And in fact, I don't think any country is more advanced along these architectural lines than Germany when it comes to home construction. But in that alternate universe, imagine if there were no such architectural concepts. And now you're an innovator that has a great idea for how to heat and cool inside a home. And you spend 6 months of doing custom integration into one person's home and then another 6 months to the next. You're selling one at a time, integrating one at a time. That situation is what happens to innovators in healthcare technology. About twice a month, startup founders come to me at Microsoft Research and pitch their new technology. In fact, I had several very bright people from Palo Alto come pitch me on this amazing new radiological imaging analytics technology, and they had one customer, which was Stanford Medicine. And when they left with the pitch, and they proved they were reducing costs, saving lives, when they left, we concluded they're doomed. Because even the pathology department right across the hall had a completely different architecture that would not allow that system to just plug in without another 3 months of integration work. And so somehow I think the health tech industry has to mature to the point where it has these sorts of architectural concepts for innovators to plug into.
Michael, as a CEO of a listed company, ignoring regulation is not really an option for you. So you obviously have to live with it, you have to embrace it, you may even have to push to change it. But question again for you is the regulation the key challenge, the key problem you have in implementing your strategy you were just explaining to us, or are there any other challenges for you?
Yeah, it is, but it needs to be embedded in a bigger context. It's not that we are blaming the regulator as such. I absolutely agree. Healthcare needs to be regulated. And actually, we love also, sometimes we moan, but we love having a regulator. It's also a barrier of entry, by the way, from a business perspective. And the healthcare industry has a lot of experience, whether it's drug discovery and a lot of trials. You don't want to use a drug which has not been trialed and so on and so forth, but also when it comes to medical devices and the like. The challenge here is a different one because they are manifold. It is a rapidly developing technology. People already don't talk about, in the US especially, about AI. We already talk about GAI and the agents and so on and so forth. So the progress is so rapidly on the mere technological side, and the theoretical option space for opportunities is huge. It is too big, actually. And that's why healthcare, by the way, is the industry where most of the AI euros or dollars are going into, because many AI investments, people do use AI, and the things you mentioned is actually already in use on MRI, CTs, ultrasound, endoscopy, and so on and so forth. That's not a new thing. The point is that when you ask people, do you really have a return on invest on AI application, it gets a little iffy. In healthcare, you may have a different return, a different dividend, because we are already saving people's life, being better by better clinical decision making, by using exactly that. When you do, for example, imaging of a chest, this is the most complex one because you have a lot of organs, and you're looking for the lung, but you don't see a nodule somewhere else. So there you get a direct dividend. And you don't have that many people who really know what is happening on the technological space and race. And then now put yourselves in the shoes of a regulator. How would you want to regulate this? The second thing is, the driver of this whole AI is compute. That costs a lot of energy. When I was a week ago in Palo Alto and I met the Stanford professor, he told me in the LLM models we use now, one token is the energy of one-day iPhone. One token is the energy of one day iPhone. And then we ask, write me an essay on, I don't know what, the latest VEF. The consumption of energy, and there we need to be careful. I talked about it is an equalizer on health equity, but we also need to be careful about the have and the have-nots. Because, and I don't mean that harsh, Peter, but I would say at the very moment, those who benefit the most are the hyperscalers, because you have the infrastructure. And you heard President Trump, 500 billion. So the hyperscalers, NVIDIA, it's a single source on the GPU. By the way, one of the first GPU-like chips I learned in Stanford last week was a Siemens engineer in 1992. And then we made Infineon out of that, but that's a different story. And so it's the hyperscalers, it's NVIDIA, and it's energy companies. That's why I said geopolitics and technology may be so interlinked, and now you understand when President Trump bets on energy and tech. It is interlinked. So if you go on that one, it is pretty hard for a regulator to even keep pace. It's hard for us as a user. I'm not an expert in AI. I ask people. I get to know. Peter is a research expert, but it is so fast. That's the first thing. Nevertheless, we should be open to disseminate that new technology. And there I see a difference between Europe and the US. And Europe, again, is over-regulating. Europe is already regulating something which isn't there. And
if I could interrupt there, you're sparking a thought that I think is worth saying. In the U.S. system of government, generally speaking, police forces are only allowed to enforce the law. They are not allowed to write the laws. And similarly, government agencies are either able to do rulemaking or do regulation, but not both. And it's more countries like China or Russia that might endow regulators with rulemaking authority. At least in Europe, it's a little bit more mixed, but in the US, it's very un-American to have regulators have rulemaking authority. The one exception is in healthcare. So, for example, the Food and Drug Administration has broad rulemaking authority and is able to enforce those regulations. And so, you just sparked the thought. I think it's possible that in the age of AI, that needs to be rethought.
And it may be. That's why, everybody's so curious, what is the pick for those institutions and what RFK, Robert Kennedy Jr. is going to pick, who is heading the FDA. I think from our point of view, we are very happy that there's some science in there. But, this whole game also in the US will be about deregulation and increasing the speed. And if I look at the EU AI Act, it is pretty cumbersome. And it is covering a lot of AI. And when we then come to healthcare and medicine and medical devices and technology, we go into high risk. And we just said it needs to be regulated. It is high risk. But that is a conundrum where this is also kind of like a mindset topic. And within Europe, it's also different. We are further progressed in Spain on everything we do, driving the efficiency on the database we have. It's not Judy's epic, but it's also a lot of patience. But that is because in Spain, there's a different regulation than in Germany, with all the GDPR and yada, yada, yada. So we'll see what the next government is going to do on that.
Yeah, I feel if I can have a chance to not respond, because I think we don't disagree, but on the power kind of thing. And maybe the way I think about this, this is another alternate universe thing. So you close your eyes again and imagine an alternate universe where people live without electricity. So in your home, for light, you use candles, let's imagine. And so now an innovator invents copper wire and discovers that copper wire carries electric current very efficiently from point A to point B. And we know this is going to change life for the better. But we don't know why, because no one's invented the light bulb yet. Now, from that starting point, who is crazy and bold enough to imagine that it might be reasonable to string copper wire down every single street into every single home, let alone understand how to regulate that? And so in that context, when we talk about $1 trillion infrastructure build-outs for AI, it is, I would argue, that type of bold thinking. Yes. That is going to be so fundamental that we need to diffuse it to everyone. And in the same way that it's unthinkable that you would live without electricity and light bulbs in your house, it would be impossible to think that you would live without AI in your life. That's the dream. Whether it comes true or not, then it's worth a societal debate. That's the philosophy behind this.
So as we talk about adoption of AI this year rather than about last year, I think it's pretty important to talk about use cases and even to talk about successful use cases, success stories. I would pretty much appreciate if we're much more talking about these things which really work already rather than which doesn't work already. So Michael, do you have any concrete use cases, success stories where you put already AI in to your business where you are pretty proud of and say, okay, that's the best step we could do so far, and we of course do not stop there, but this is something which everybody can imagine from hopefully not visiting a hospital, but if there's a necessity to do this, you may then have another view on that.
Yes. There are numerous use cases, by the way, as has been said. AI is the technology, and we also use the digitization, the software, and the data. So you have today in MRI scans, in CT scans, you have AI applications in there where I told you when you do a chest CT, there is a so-called companion, a radiology companion, which already hints at it's not replacing the radiology. This was a discussion 4 or 5 years ago. There will be no radiologists anymore. And this is machine learning stuff, right? This is already 3, 4, 5 years already in use. Machine learning, you train it with data. You train it with connotated data, annotated data, images from, in our hospital system, or somebody maybe has the opportunity to even have a worldwide data lake, so that you automatically are not dependent only what the physician sees, but what the machine, by using this data, is seeing. So this is an example. The second example is also on endoscopy or colonoscopy, for example, that with the help of AI, you see polyps much more precise than the human eye. And I would, by the way, contradict. Of course, doctors innovate. By the way, we want doctors to innovate, and they publish research papers. And the technology comes, for example, from a company like Medtronic, who have an AI engine in the endoscopy. But what we as a hospital do is then that we categorize the polyps, or that we categorize when we find a tumor. A couple of years ago, lung cancer was lung cancer. Today, we know out of the whole progress on biological research that we probably have 10 different cancer types in lung cancer. And by the way, also there, AI will supercharge the biomedical research, and that will lead to quantum leaps. So then what do we do with large language models? Exactly what Peter said. We have that in Spain based on ambient listening. I don't know whether it's based on Microsoft. Could be, by the way. But it is. See, Christoph is nodding. So it is based on Microsoft. So this is an application we just created. And you go in there and you have a conversation with the doctor, and it's ambient listening, and it's automatically transcribed. And to the point of regulation, we can do that in Spain. It is being used. It is being loved. In Germany, sometimes you still get this hardboard, right? Yeah. Where there's a piece of paper, and then somebody comes around the corner. Did you fill out this one already? Yeah, and so on and so forth. So we have that one. We have an application also based on large language model for discharge letters. This is more complicated because they need more clinical data, so we have confined it to cardiovascular disease patterns. So these are use cases. But what I'm trying to say, and this is where I see real option space for fast startups and so on. So this whole thing is going too fast. Our strategy is not that we have an overarching AI strategy for Fresenius. This would kill it. You need to be, in brackets, decentral where it's happening. That's why it's called deep tech, because you need deep domain knowledge. And you need to focus on not boiling the ocean, but solving that one problem. And then you collect the use cases, and then if we need a technology partner, then obviously it goes on a group level, because I don't want 10 people to talk to 10 people. And in this space, it's so fast. There, I think many startups have a lot of space when they are able to provide an application, like your example maybe on imaging with Stanford, where then we are the ones where they could scale, because we have a huge network.
Thank you. As promised, I would like now to open up so to say, the discussion for you guys here to throw questions. I think we have some mics here, and yeah, it's up to me. You were most probably the first one, so.
Hi, can you hear me?
Works.
Yes. Hi, my name is Tao Nguyen. I'm the founder of Equal Care. And you talked about supercharging care and outcome for patients while being trustworthy. And for me, I would like to hear what are your efficient measures out of research or practice or in the iterative space to hold our systems up to the highest standard of precision when it comes to patient individual factors like gender, ethnicity, incomplete data sets for this precision, and create transparency around this.
I can start. One of the most vexing problems in large language models that are trained on the output of human thought and expression is the deep presence of biases. It's a tremendous technical debate about whether those biases can be mitigated or repaired. My personal opinion is that they are fundamental and that they will always be biased because all human beings are biased. And so the cognitive structures that lead human thought processes to fall into biases, those same cognitive functions are being discovered into the neural circuitry of large language models when we're doing the training. At the same token, it's important to understand that in the same way that you are a deeply biased person, I'm certain of it, so am I, but I also believe that you are very good at spotting a biased decision made by someone else. So if Michael were to make a decision on your healthcare and you would detect, in fact, you're a professional in this. What we are learning is that large language models, the most advanced ones, are almost superhuman in their ability to detect biased decisions that are made by other AIs or by human beings, even though they themselves seem to be hopelessly biased. And there was just a paper in the New England Journal of Medicine in the last month's issue on this topic where they used generative AI to review submitted manuscripts, review medical case studies, and they found that AI outperformed all human beings in the test on detecting biases in those texts. So what we have to try to internalize is augmenting our ability as human beings to fight against unfairness, lack of inclusion, lack of equity.
And I think the key is transparency. So, and this a little bit plays also to regulation. If there should be one regulation, is as long as we build new models and new AIs that are not really understood fully yet, and they may have biases, and we all know that we still require them to be transparently reported, because we cannot avoid it that they'll have biases as well as we cannot do with human beings, right? So be transparent about it. I think that's the key, and that should be the number one regulation for me. It's not so much to tell somebody what he can or is not allowed to do, but rather ask the person to deliver on transparent measures and KPIs so that they can understand actually what's going on. And this will then also lead that, for instance, this may become obvious. And then we can start thinking about how to do something about it.
Yeah, from my perspective, that's why I said we are probably overestimating the long-term thing where many journalists say there's no doctor anymore and robots will take over and so on and so forth. And I told you our strategy is still human to human. There will be no clinical decision without a human and a doctor. And one of our protection mechanism is, that's why I said trust. People come to us anyways and trust us because on oncology care, because that clinic is known for really having the best doctors, the best equipment, and maybe the best AI support. I think healthcare with AI is better than just healthcare. But the human being will still and has to play a role. And of course, we need to be cognizant of when we analyze our data in Spain with the many million patients we have. This is probably more reflecting the Spanish population and ethnicity and so on and so forth, which may be different when we talk about an Asian population and so on and so forth. And I also believe that still the models, there's a foundational model and some intelligent engines which other people offer, and then on top of it we build our own models where we have the first word is responsibility, which comes into mind, and we still know there is still too much error in there, also in the LLMs. There is, Peter knows better, but I heard during the last couple of days 10%, which may go down to 1%, when we talk about hallucination and everything. But think about what you do after that in decision making, so it compounds. The 1% compounds, so even 1% is not good enough. You need 99.99, what have you. And therefore, I don't see that the human is gone and the responsibility we have as an institution.
Perhaps there's just one final last question, if I have a look on my... So perhaps you, yeah? Yeah, sure.
Thanks a lot. My name is Hanna van Kolfschoot and I work at the University of Amsterdam on AI regulation of medical AI. And I was thinking during this conversation that you are all highly specialized in the field of healthcare and how AI can play a role there. But what I see when I teach my medical students, and also if you look at a recent survey in BMJ, you see that all of my medical students tell me that they use ChatGPT to write medical notes, to summarize medical information, to put in patient data. And then this BMJ study shows that 70% of the doctors right now is using ChatGPT, which is of course not meant for the medical sector, and also comes with all kinds of challenges for quality, but also privacy. And I was wondering that this is happening at the same time while hospitals are really struggling with getting good regulation and doctors are afraid of liabilities with AI. So how do you deal with that as a company that is trying to put a product on this regulated market while this is happening at the same time?
Michael?
Peter?
Knowing that we're running low on time, one thing is if you do use ChatGPT, since you mentioned that, click on Explore GPTs and search for Talk to Peter Lee about AI and healthcare. And so there is a custom GPT that has been trained on all of my writings, all of my podcasts, my book, my research papers, and it's been instructed to respond as me. I think the real Peter Lee is slightly more interesting and humorous than that one, but that's...
I will test this.
Yeah, I think that this, again, to my mind, speaks to the urgent need for regulatory frameworks. But I would like to express some optimism, and because we all think of the healthcare system and healthcare regulation as moving slowly, but in the first 12 months of the release of GPT-4, major institutions mobilized and in less than 12 months issued guidelines of use and frameworks for use. The National Academy of Medicine in the US, the American Medical Association, the World Health Organization, all have done this. The EU AI Act has a whole section on medical and healthcare uses, the AI Act, executive order in the United States. So people are thinking about this. I put faith in so many smart people raising the question and trying to figure this out. But it is an urgent priority for sure.
And it's a great call to action, because if people have on their mobile phone more artificial intelligence for their private life, and then they come to the workplace and it's so old-fashioned technologically wise, they get really frustrated. And so I think we all have an important duty to really make sure people can make use of these novel technologies also in their workplace, right? And really for the better, and they should not use illegally, let's say, or outside of regulation. Then there are private iPhones for using AI on, let's say, workplace use cases. Yeah? So we all have to work really and speed up and collaborate, because we will not speed up if we not collaborate more closely.
Okay, I'm afraid we're running out of time so far. So rather than doing a smart wrap-up, which is usual, to just repeat what the people said, which I think is not really useful, because ChatGPT could do that, I would just remind you, I mean, if you really want to have kind of those discussions with such high-profile panelists in a basement of usually a gallery, I guess, is that, in a smart city, in a small city, with noise from the cleaning machine outside, you really need to come to Davos. You need to come to the AI house here. So thanks for being here. It was a pleasure. Thank you very much for our panelists for doing this. It was an honor and a pleasure to have you here. And yeah, thanks very much for those of you who are traveling home soon. Safe travels and take care. Thank you.